Good day, family. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Learning Channel on YouTube. I say this is sponsored by the Melanin Institute of Human Technology. Our topic today, we're going to deal with the end of the year, end of 2023 and 2022, leading into 2023, and the holiday season. That's where we are. As 2023 approaches, we are going to need some new thinking to adapt to what's happening in this environment that we're living in. I was looking at the news today, and let me share this with you if I can. There was a article. It says, outrage after black teens attacked for swimming in whites-only pool. This is not 1940s. This is not 1950s. This is 2022. But it's at South Africa. We're going to come back to that again about South Africa and the people who created that environment of apartheid there. But outrage after black teens attacked for swimming in whites-only pool at South Africa resort. I thought that was a democracy now. I thought we were all equal. I thought apartheid was gone. Nah, drama exists all around us. So we have to look at this Christmas environment and this holiday season and how we were really going through a mental genocide. So the topic of the day is the devastation of colonization. So we'll bring it back to why this is such a dramatic problem that we see there in South Africa, but it's really all over the world. Now, what I'm saying is colonization, from what the European or the settlers have done, the colonizers have done to other lands, has created a problem in the world. And I'm saying the problem is really mental genocide. And as we approach the scholars that have talked about this already, we talk about Ishakamusha Barashango. Don't be scared to say the brother's name. He's now deceased, brother from Philly. He's an ancestor. Ishakamusha Barashango. Say it to yourself. Ishakamusha Barashango, an ancestor who committed his works. He wrote, you can see that African people and European holidays, a mental genocide. I'm not sure you can see that clearly there. Let me see if I can show it to you, because you got to know this brother's work. African people and European holidays, a mental genocide. He's talking about Merry Mess, speaking about Christmas. Thanksgiving calls that Misgivings Day. It breaks down the origins of how these particular holidays were even started. 2 volumes, book 1 and book 2. So book 1, he deals with the Merry Mess, and he talks about Misgivings Day, and he also talks about ways that we can start to look at ways we can celebrate with something called Kwanzaa. But the brother is Ishakamusha Barashango, volume 1, and then he wrote volume 2 to go a little bit deeper. It talks about Valentine's Day and that whole drama about, some king eating somebody's heart. And that's why you got hearts with Valentine's Day and the whole chocolates and all that, and the coagulated blood and all that. And so you don't understand Europeans' holidays really create a mental genocide because we're doing something and modeling after someone else. We don't even know what the holidays mean. Holidays. Before I even get to that merry mess, there's another brother named Del Jones. Del Jones is another ancestor we need to know. Del Jones wrote, he's considered to be the war correspondent. I mean, he was on the front lines of dealing with how people stealing our culture. Del Jones also from Philly. Look up Del Jones' work, but he wrote Culture Bandits 1 and 2. I have Culture Bandits number 2 here, Annihilation of African Images. Culture Bandits 1, he talks about, the whole influence that someone like Elvis Presley got and what he did to be famous, what he got that from African people with rhythm and culture. And then you have the system using him as if he's the #1 rock and roll person. He also wrote a book called The Black Holocaust, Global Genocide. So it's Del Jones. Got to get his work. Show those up to you a little close for you. The Black Holocaust by Del Jones, Global Genocide. So he discusses the decimation of us all over the planet but we're not paying attention. That's why one day we might be wiped out and there'll be nothing and nobody to pay attention. So the culture bandits, he went into how the Western culture steals all of our information and uses it as if we've never created it, and it takes it and uses it against us. And another one he has is called The Sex Prisoners, Culture Bandits 3. So it's 3 volumes. But you can also look at them probably on YouTube. Bill Jones, both he and Ishakamusha Barashango were at the forefront of discussing this problem we have with holidays and people stealing our culture. Before I go on to that, there's another book called, you probably won't find it. It's called Psychic Trauma by Latif. And unfortunately, one of the brothers, Sultan Latif, passed away out of Chicago. And this book may not be easy to find, but there was a very important component in this book on the topic of Europe's first rise to power. And it talks about a time period called Saturnalia. Saturnalia. One of Rome's major pagan festivals, the Feast of Saturnalia, that's spelled like Saturn and Alia at the end, Saturnalia, was held on December 25th around the winter solstice. So we just passed the winter solstice, December 21st. This celebration was marked with wild, drunken parties. Once the government adopted Christianity, they turned this festival into a celebration of the birth of Jesus, a tradition which is carried on in the Western world to this day, complete with wild, drunken parties. You know I'm telling the truth, because right before Christmas, go to the liquor store, packed. Liquor store was packed. Parking lot's packed. Not the library, the liquor store. Even though Jesus is supposed to be the reason for the season, you got all this stuff going on. So this December 25th was created as a time period to use to exploit the population. When people are already out there being festive, let's go ahead and now use this date to say Christ was born. And we know that's not the date, the 25th. They use it around Saturnalia. So I got a lot of good history from slavery, the African American psychic trauma, but I don't believe you're going to be able to find this book. So in our discussion, using Ishakamusha Barashango and Del Jones' work, I wanted to set the tone for other revolutionaries who discussed their experiences about dealing with holidays. So you have Omali Yeshitela. He is the chairperson for the African People's Socialist Party. If you did not know, this past year in 2022, his organization was raided by the FBI. Why? Because they said he was in cahoots for doing something with Russia. You know, it's about COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program of the government attacking those revolutionary people who are just talking about things that should be done for the people. So he has a document called The Burning Spear publication, the voice of the International African Revolution. You got people who's been speaking for us. But in his article, one of his articles in this documentation is about Sinterklaas. Now, this is the image of white people, melanin recessive people in Holland dressing up with blackface. Yes, today it still goes on. But we have to understand the history behind why they're even doing this. Why we then get confused with our mental genocide by practicing this thing related to Christmas from a European perspective. And then again, it comes down to mental genocide. So here again, you got a little black person. That's not black, that's a white person with blackface. With an afro. You got the white, looks like saint, like a patron saint. That's Santa Claus. But they call him Sinterklaas. So we now know where Santa Claus comes from. You got these white people here with black afros on. And so when you delve into this deeper, this is an anti-African Dutch tradition in Holland. You don't believe me? Go look at it yourself. I'm just presenting the information to you to wake you up. It's an annual parade. So we know Santa Claus here in North America, but then Europe, there in Holland, they call him Sinterklaas. there's a servant that hangs out with him called Zwarte Piet. Now, this is the Dutch name for Black Pete. Black, Zwarte, Black Pete, Pete. He's a servant. All white people dressed in blackface with fake afros and dreadlock walk around in this parade today. So what happens is how they play this game. Good children get gifts and bad children are put into a sack to be taken to Spain. The heck does Spain have to do with Holland? Well, Spain once dominated Holland. Did you know that? These Dutch are actually the same people who went to South Africa and created apartheid. Let's break all that down because that's why we're confused about these holidays and how they've been started and the traditions. Now, Spain is involved here because this deals with the Moors, black people who were in Europe from 711 to about 1492. A long period of time they were influencing that area of the world, such as Spain and Portugal. So Spain and being a colonizer or going to Holland and taking over that area and dominating them. Historically, people from Holland, the Dutch people don't like that. So now they think about getting the bad kids and taking back to where the black people were. That is in Spain. So you got Zwarte Piet, a little black servant, catching the little black kids, the bad people, bad kids, and sending them to Spain. History going on right in front of you. You don't know what's happening. Wiping your head out. Screwing your head on backwards. You don't know what you're looking at. And so these Dutch are the same people that traveled and traversed around Africa and went and settled down the bottom of Africa, a place called South Africa. These same Dutch people are the same people that created apartheid. That article that I mentioned in the beginning of this about today, white people attacking black people for swimming in a pool. What's going on with the mentality of a people where they got to continue to be colonizers, control, and take over other places? That is not human to want to keep doing that. There's something going on with the xenophobic nature of wanting to continually control and dominate other people. So South Africa, they had the whole apartheid movement for years, and you had people that were trying to dismantle that, and it was dismantled. But the fact that we just read that story shows that it's not dismantled in certain places. So think about the 1619 Project. This is you ever read that was kind of created by Nicole Hannah-Jones. There's several authors that are contributing to this, like Carol Anderson out of Emory University. You got Michelle Alexander has an article in here. But the 1619 Project. If you think about the time period of 1619, when she's talking about this, even though there's some fictional kind of like poems in here, but there's still history in here. Those African captives that were first brought here were brought by the Dutch. Possibly the slave ship known as Good Ship of Jesus was blessed by this so-called patron saint Sinterklaas. So we're now talking about Santa Claus, and they got this Sinterklaas and all that stuff dealt with controlling and taking over people, subjugating people. We're talking about the slave trade. Can't even call it a trade. Can't call it stick up a trade. It was actually theft. You stole people. Think about Charles Dickens and the Christmas Carol story and Scrooge and how to make capitalism gentle. Scrooge said, we got to keep making money. We got to keep making money. We can't keep just laying off and taking off. So he's always upset during the Christmas time. But then you had, I guess, past and present and future time came in, and the Christmas story talks about how to make him less concerned about making money and, hey, let's take it easy. So during these Christmas times about what? Buying things and getting things and giving things. And so it's to make capitalism gentle, like we all have something to share. But those people who started that, the Holland, the Dutch people, are again the same individuals we just talked about that had that impact on South Africa. And here we now have them here channeling people to other parts of the world, out of Africa, taken to other parts of the world with ships called Jesus. You can't be righteous doing that. Something's going on with your mentality. So these are some of the images in the parade. Again, these are all white people dressed in blackface, not in America, over there in Europe, with afros and dreadlocks. Don't question me. Check it out for yourself. Sinterklaas. Now, I'm just going to end here with a discussion about this mindset of just wanting to wipe people out, because you would probably think that could never happen. We got this the enslavement of people, taking people from other places, and are they ever going to exist? Or are they going to survive? Well, we've been here and we've survived. And you're not the largest part of the population here in the United States, but people of melanin dominant capacity are the most people on the planet. But could a people actually be wiped out? Well, look at this Holocaust scenario. I'm talking about the Jewish Holocaust there in Auschwitz, Germany, which had nothing to do with the United States. This is Australia, you see on the top left there. That's Australia. Big piece of land. You know about the Aborigines. They were also taken over by some convicts that came from Britain. Convicts also came to America. Convicts. So we have to start talking about the real history. And that's what they don't want you talking about when you speak of critical race theory. Don't talk about the real people. You got Australia. There's a landmass. But right there at the bottom of it is a place called Tasmania. So if you blow it up, that's Tasmania right there on the bottom, which is like the south east portion of Australia. Tasmania. Growing up, I think you heard something called the Tasmanian Devils, or if you weren't in the cartoons, maybe you did not hear about that. But Tasmania was a landmass that had had people. There are no more Tasmanian people because the Europeans wiped them out. And we're supposed to now forget that? In this little island mass, how could these people who were isolated from the main mass of Australia even exist? Well, they say there was something called the Bass Strait, this landmass that when the ice age and the floods were not as bad, it was landmass to connect people to the mainland. So they could walk from the Bass Strait. They could have traveled easily from the mainland to Tasmania. Then when the ice age kind of water started melting from the glaciers and the water started to rise, and then those areas became more water, and therefore the people got isolated for 10,000 years. Europeans wiped them out in 200 years. There's something going on in the mentality of the people that want to wipe a whole nother people out. What they were fearing, who knows? But that xenophobia is deadly. They wipe these people out. You don't believe me? Oh, you can read history on this. There's a guy named Jared Diamond wrote a book a document in the 90s called 10,000 Years of Solitude. So I don't think you're really conceptualizing this. 10,000 years living peacefully on your own, in your own place, until they met these Europeans in 1642. So-called discovered by the Europeans. We know the story. Discovering people. Well, prior to the contact, they lived peacefully. Of course, they had their own culture going on. It's unfortunate they didn't have anything written down. They were not as advanced as other cultures because they were isolated in this little place, so they didn't have too many good technical aspects to survive, but they made it for 10,000 years. They were doing something in their own environment. The last person to survive was Queen Truganini. She died in 1990s. She died like 1886. 1886. She's the last surviving member. Listen to this stuff. I mean, unless you read it, you don't understand it. This is a family here of the last surviving Tasmanian people, and you got an image of what those Tasmanian. They look like us. They black people. Look like the Aborigines, but they weren't. They were black people. That's all they were. And the Europeans or white melanin recessive people wiped them out. How do they do that? Here's some examples from this article by Jared Diamond. You can look up Jared Diamond's work, and also a brother named. Gotta know this. I'm going to talk about him a little. I'll conclude with him. Renoko Rashidi. Must know his work. On March 5th, 1972, a French expedition led by Nicolas Mario de Francais landed on the island. Within a few hours, his sailors had shot several Aborigines. On January 28, 1977, the British landed on the island. Following coastal New South Wales in Australia, Tasmania was established as a British convict settlement in 1803. Remember now, Haiti in 1804 gained their independence. Haiti was on the other side of the world. Black people fighting up and revolutionizing themselves against what? The European powers. Here you have in 1803, Europeans going to the other side of the world as convicts with that mentality, slicing and dicing and killing people. These convicts had been harshly traumatized and were exceptionally brutal. In addition to soldiers, administrators, and missionaries, got to watch that. People coming in with the Bible in one hand, and you leave with your mind going. Missionaries, administrators, eventually more than 65,000 men and women convicts were settled in Tasmania. A glaringly inefficient penal system allowed such convicts to escape into the Tasmanian hinterland, where they exercised the full measure of the bloodlust and brutality upon the island's black occupants. Humans can't do that to other humans. This is something devilish. According to social historian Clive Turnbull, the activity of these criminals would soon include, quote, shooting, bashing out brains, burning alive, and slaughter of aborigines for dogs' meat. I don't even want to repeat that again. Tactics for hunting down Tasmanians included riding out on horseback to shoot them, setting out steel traps to catch them, and putting out poison flower where they might find and eat it. Shepherds cut off the penis and testicles of Aboriginal men to watch the men run a few yards before dying. Only a devil could do that. That is not human to do that to another human. At a hill christened Mount Victory, settlers slaughtered 30 Tasmanians and threw their bodies over a cliff. One party of police killed 70 Tasmanians and dashed out the children's brains. I'm telling you, that is not human. Something is going on with the mentality of the people that want to just decimate another people like that. So how do we decolonize the mind? We have to read literature. Got to know the documentation. So this brother, Runoko Rashidi, another ancestor, mentioning names of people you have not heard of, which is a problem. They put the work in, sacrifice, put their lives on the line. But his global journeys in search of the African presence. And so when he starts to go to the Pacific, goes to the that area in Australia, gets the images of the people. I mean, black people looking like your grandma, or Uncle Jarvis, or Uncle Nate. I mean, he's there, documenting. You got to support his work as he is now resting in peace, but his documentation is still there in the bookstores. So we have a dying colonialism. We got to end this mindset. Frantz Fanon talked about that when he was helping out the Algerian Revolution. A dying colonialism. You got to get rid of this mentality. You see in the Black Panther, which is a problem for the second one, but the whole mindset of the colonizer. We got to wipe that out. We have to stop thinking like that. I mean, I got a book here. It says, White Devil, a true story of war, savagery, and vengeance in colonial America. This is by Stephen Brumwell. I mean, documenting the atrocities. It says, look, between 1718 and 1775, it is reckoned that at least 150,000 so-called Scotch-Irish immigrants took ship for America from Northern Ireland. This folk movement dwarfed all others that sailed across the Atlantic. So you have these people coming from another land, colonizing another land. And with the significant exception of Africans who were enslaved, not that many people have ever been brought and come to another place like that. And they're coming not with peace and blessings. They're coming with kill and take. We got to stop that. So that's Stephen Brumwell. The last book I'm going to share with you is a Native American scholar called Jack Forbes. Jack Forbes, he wrote a book called Columbus and Other Cannibals. Jack Forbes. He says, and I talk about this in, I think, Dark Matters, Dark Secrets about there's a disease called the Wetiko disease. Wetikos. Wetiko. It deals with it's psychosis, a very contagious, rapidly spreading disease about wanting to kill and take advantage of other people and just rapaciously just act like people aren't even human. And only a non-human can do that to another human. So we have to really analyze the situation of who was the real cannibals. So Columbus and Other Cannibals by Jack Forbes. That's another book to have on your list. So to conclude here, all we're trying to say is to decolonize your mind, again, you must take control of it first. So we have to stop practicing and doing things that are probably detrimental to our longevity. So in this time of the year, we must reflect on what we need to do for the next year to move in a positive direction, to not allow some of these holiday events, and some of the history of them deter us from being who we are as true African people. So I know this is going to go over to more than just the United States. So for those Africans in other parts of the world that are finding their direction on where they need to be in life to decolonize their mind, you can come back to this learning channel. We will work on you. We will work on us, because I am, because we are, and because we are, therefore I am. So we'll work this out. Okay. We shall be black. Have a great day.